Ready?
Ready? I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
All right. Welcome to the Making Fun podcast, the podcast that's good enough for who it's for. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller, and I would like to introduce you to a man with a lot of charm, talent, and wit. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here, so instead, here's my brother Drew.
Episode 6?
Episode 6, it is. So what's up?
Clouds, apparently.
Yeah, that's happening. I was out all day yesterday working on this PT Cruiser, and I was just burning up in the sun, and it's been overcast all day today, so I should have done it today, but I probably would have got rained on.
I've been, about last week I've spent out in the sun trying to work on my building.
How's that coming along?
Very well.
I've seen a picture of it.
Well, I have pushed forward. Yesterday I went and got the metal for the roof and got all that on, so I've got roof and sides. I don't have any trim or doors on it yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there quick, too.
Making anything else this week?
No, that's taking up most of my time.
All your maker time?
All my maker time has gone into turning a crate into a shed.
We're terrible makers.
Why?
Very slow projects.
I don't want to. It might be slow on the projects, but I've been doing big projects.
Yeah, you have.
Yesterday, I was up on the roof putting the tin down, and my brother-in-laws, Keith and Adam, were helping me, and they were putting the metal up for me. I had holders in place and everything, and I was putting the metal down, and I heard them talking to somebody, and I look over, and there's this old lady standing at the fence talking to them, complimenting on how well the yard and how well the house looks. She's like, nobody's ever taken care of it this well. I was like, thank you. And then she goes, do you want to be our maintenance man?
Is that the old folks home behind you?
Yeah.
She was asking that?
Yeah, if I wanted to be their maintenance man. And I was like, it's okay. And she goes, he's slow.
Probably an old guy.
All right, he is. He lives only 2 houses down from me.
Oh, yeah? They probably wouldn't pay you enough.
Nah.
I had a dream that place was torn down behind your house. Like I was standing in your yard and there wasn't anything there except for like an open field.
I wish there was an open field behind my house.
So,
don't get me wrong, the old people have been extremely nice and kind to us. Stop and chat, and just neighborly nice. But they've been really nice, so I can't say too much. I just like living out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, if I had to live in town and the opportunity was with a bunch of young people or old people, I'd choose the old people. They're quiet and mind their own business mostly.
Yeah, I think I'm the loudest person in the neighborhood. I'm always beating and banging and doing something.
So
I will have to say this. It has been an extensive project from the point of, I just took something I had to take this giant crate and create a floor for it first, and then had to build the framing. So a lot of it's been some ingenuitive ideas to get it to work out properly, but it's come along very quickly. I did make my own rafters for it too. And then yesterday I went and got the metal, and I forgot to pick up furring strips to put down. So I had a 2x4, so I went on and just made my furring strips for the roof myself with my table saw.
There you go.
So save me some money in the long run doing it that way too.
How much do you think that you're saving by using that crate?
I priced one about the same, an 8x8 building, and they wanted $1,200 for it. I've got in it right now.
And the crate was free?
The crate was free.
So is it almost done?
Yeah. I've got everything bought. I just don't have everything together.
So you saved roughly $300. Right?
From $1,200 to $500?
Oh, I thought you said $800.
No.
So $700.
$700.
Okay. I thought you said $800 at first. For some reason. I don't know.
It's worked out pretty well, though. We're happy with it. Buddy Mark come down and help me work on it.
Working on anything else? No?
No, I haven't.
What'd you say?
What have you been into?
What haven't I been into? Let's see. I put a heater core in a PT Cruiser yesterday the wrong way. So there'll be a video on that. Everybody likes it when I do videos about working on stuff the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
I went straight through the firewall.
Really?
Yep.
Why?
Well, if you take it to somebody and have them put it in, it costs $1,000 roughly. It's the same trouble I had when I was working on that Chevy Blazer, that the heater core. The whole dash has to come out. If you take it to somebody, it's roughly a 10-hour job.
Wow.
And the PT Cruiser is kind of the same deal, except I could get to the heater core on the outside. And so I just got my Dremel and some cutting wheels and cut. Well, she had ordered the heater core, and I measured it, and I measured around where it was on the firewall, and I cut it out and cut the box out inside, put the new heater core in, silicone, some sheet or like some flashing on the inside of the box to seal it up, some spray foam, and put the steel back in place, and put some hold downs there for that. And it's working. I drove it to the doctor's office today.
So how much or how long did that take you?
Probably 3 hours finished.
That's the same concept as the old '89 Firebird or the old '80s model Firebirds and Camaros. Most people would cut a hole in the trunk space when the fuel pump would go out instead of dropping the whole tank.
Well, I don't know if most people would do that, but I know one person that would do that.
Well, I've seen several of them done that way over the years.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that I think should have access panel. Engineering is good to a point, but it does not engineer something to be maintained very easily.
That's true.
And that's my biggest gripe with that. Other than the heater core, I did a hanging plant video last week. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. I really liked that one.
And I'm working on a planter, a pipe planter. Right now I haven't finished it, and I mean it's getting late in the season to be planting anything, but I'm going to put kale in it, so it'll be okay.
As long as you got them in the ground by July 4th, that's the old saying. As long as you got your plants in by July 4th, you're okay.
Yeah, that kale is pretty resilient. I've got some in the garden, but I wanted to make this planter, and so I'm working on that.
I got some that's doing really well right now.
Oh, mine too. I've had a blast watching them green beans pop out of the ground. It's just like I just planted those things yesterday. You know, that's what it felt like. But
my ghost peppers, I still haven't seen any flowers or anything on them. My ghost pepper plants. Now my jalapenos flowered last week, and I'm starting to get really little jalapenos. I've got some bell peppers about the size of a quarter right now. My tomatoes are about the same size, and my cabbages are looking kind of worse for wear.
Are the bugs getting to them?
Yeah, I haven't been able to get out, and I got sidetracked with the building, and I keep forgetting to get out and spray them.
Yeah, all of my stuff is looking pretty good. My pepper plants seem a little spindly, and my garden is funny. I have real rich soil on one half, and the other half doesn't look like it has much richness in it at all, and that's the side my peppers are in. Yeah, but I've added, compost and stuff like that to it, but it's still not up to where it ought to be.
I get that.
Yeah, and other than that, I've just been working on some artwork and going to some yard sales and buying junk.
That's always fun.
Yeah, I found some cool stuff. I bought a Hot Wheels crisscross crash set and a whole bag of cars for like $7. I was excited.
Awesome.
And it had some old Matchbox cars in there. And I got a 1940s Mickey Mouse fire truck that's was made in, I forget where it was made in. Worcester? No, it wasn't Worcester. Barberton, I think. But
Barberton, Ohio?
Yeah. But the Mickey is missing his head, and it's missing the back wheels on it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool.
Let's see. What did the nail say to the board?
What?
I'm hammered.
You've got notes today, don't you?
Uh-huh.
I told you to come up with some jokes because I didn't think we were going to have a topic this week. I kept putting it off.
It happens.
But I do have a topic. It's going to be balance. I don't know how we're going to roll with it, but you got anything for what's it's good for?
Other than my turning a crate into a shed,
You used that already.
I know. I don't have anything.
I've really been hitting the sketchbook and doing a lot of drawings lately, and I am all the packaging that's in the house, which I detest. I try to get when we go shopping, I try to encourage the shoppers to buy things that doesn't have so much packaging, but we still end up with tons and tons of it, despite my pleas. And so what I've been doing is I'll use those if I have for shipping on small items. I'll use those boxes and I'll ship things out in those. And also I'm making artwork on them now on the back side of them.
So the stuff you're shipping, you're doing artwork on?
No, some of the packaging that I'm saving, I'm doing artwork on the packaging. I'm using them for two things, for shipping and for making art on.
Cool. I like that.
And you know how sometimes you'll use toned paper and use a lot of highlights when you're doing the drawing? You kind of get that effect, but it's a lighter tone. So I don't know if it'll be received well or not, but nobody buys my artwork anyway, so.
It's good enough for who it's for.
It's good enough for who it's for. So our topic today is going to be about balance. And.
But what do you mean by balance?
That's a good question, Drew. And I wish I had a good answer. Me being the hold on, I'm digging through my notes and my pen and everything here. Being the upcyclist and conservationist that I am, I see a lot of things that are out of balance, and I think it's just human nature to well, I'm really stumbling over my words today. to be wasteful because it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think about it, because you can't see the big picture every day, you really have to think about it, see the big picture. And I'll give you an example. My son today, he started a job for working for the school system during the summer. And, you know, he does whatever grunt work they want him to do. And today, he came home early because I had a doctor's appointment. And he's got an armful of books. And he's showing them to me. And they're great books. They're hardcover books. One is M.C. Escher. And the other is a Picasso book. And he's got one, a silly facts like 4,000 things you should know and something like that.
Yeah.
He said, I'm torn, Dad, because they're making me throw all these books away. And I said, why are they throwing books away? These books look fine. He's like, I don't know. They don't know why they have to do it. They're just told that they have to do it, so they do it. They're putting them in a recycle bin, but still, they're books.
They're going digital.
Yeah, but it just seems like, well, and this is what I'm talking about, balance. This is the kind of thing that throws balance off. It was a lot of time and effort to make those books and to get them to the school. And then there's probably funding issues that are involved in that as well. You know, they have to get rid of so many books so they can get some new books. But it just doesn't make sense to throw them away.
Well, you think it would be better if they would donate them?
At the least, I think that they should contact the community, because there's plenty of community pages and stuff like that, and ask people if they want them. And that's going to save the time and energy it takes to get them to the recycle center and recycle them. And I mean, basically it's a waste, because that was a lot of effort put forth to make those books to begin with.
That's very true.
And on the other side of that, if your funding is so wacky that you have to throw away books to get new books or whatever, I mean, that's wasteful too. That's not really thinking about the outcome of getting rid of all this stuff.
Yes, but public schools are run by government programs, and in government programs, you've got to do 20 or 30 steps so you can, in the wrong direction before you can make one step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's an issue of too many chefs making the stew, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I encourage my son to talk to whoever he works for and see if they could do a community outreach, and if there's any more that are getting thrown away like that, if he could put them on the community page or something so that those books could go back out to the community instead of the recycle bin. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they're going to the recycle bin if they're just throwing them away. At least they're not going into the dumpster.
I'm sure they probably thought, well, at least this way they will be recycled instead of being thrown away, because a lot of people wouldn't recycle them if something happened or they didn't want them later.
Well, I know that I will get hours of enjoyment out of the books that he brought home. I could sit and stare at M.C. Escher drawings all day long, you know.
You could sit and stare at a wall all day long if you wanted to.
Well, yeah, I have that kind of patience sometimes. Now, okay, here's a joke about balance. It's a little off color. Two guys walk into a bar. The third one ducks. No, I'm just kidding. That's a different joke. A guy walks into a bar, and there's a monkey running around in there. And he crawls up on a guy's shoulder, and the owner said, don't worry, he won't bite or nothing. So the guy says, is it okay if I give him a peanut? And the guy says, sure. So the guy gives the monkey a peanut, and the monkey takes the peanut and inserts it into his rectum. And then he pulls it back out, and then he eats it. And the guy said, what the heck? So he gives him another peanut, and he does the same. And so the guy asked the owner, he's like, why does he do that? That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And the owner said, well, he swallowed a cue ball one time, so now he measures all of his food before he eats it. classic story of balance. You have to know.
I've never thought of that joke as a story of balance, but yes, I can understand now.
You've heard that joke before, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
You have to understand where things are going, so that there isn't trouble on down the line.
Well, there's one thing for you when dealing with balance. I've come up to a decision to do a metal roof on my building instead of doing shingles. It wouldn't have taken much for me to do shingles on the roof, but I wanted to try a metal roof because of two things. One, cheaper in the long run, because it was like $117 for me to do the whole roof. And two, making a metal roof is a lot easier than the time and effort that's put into making the fiberglass and the tar and the asphalt that they put on standard shingles.
Right.
And in the long run, it looks great, and I've seen metal roofs last a long time.
Well, I think that, from a practical standpoint and a standpoint of conservation, they're superior. They do last longer. And if you tear it off, that steel can be recycled. You can't recycle. Well, you probably can recycle the shingles in a certain way, but most of the time they're just going to go straight to the landfill.
Right. Well, I've never seen anybody ever recycle shingles.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I'm sure, I think that everything can be recycled. You just have to find a use for it and process it that way. And that's the problem. There aren't enough systems in place to help this capitalist system that produces so much garbage to process that material.
I was talking to my father-in-law, speaking of metal roofs, I was talking to my father-in-law. He was the one that initially suggested that I should do a metal roof. And when he put one on his house, instead of, he had shingles on his house. And instead of tearing the shingles off of his house, he left the shingles on there as an extra layer of insulation. So instead of them going to the landfill, they're just extra insulation on his house now.
Yeah, there you go. And, structurally, is that okay?
Why?
I don't know. I'm just looking. Well, I always try to look at all the angles.
Metal roof has ventilation through it, so it's not like anything gets caught up there. And all he did was take furring strips and use longer screws to put the furring strips down so it would go all the way through the shingles.
Yeah.
And then he just went through and put his metal on top.
Well, that sounds cool to me. Extra insulation and metal roof. The only problem it might present later on if you have to do repair. That's the only thing I could think of.
Let's see.
I think what got me on what got me thinking about this was the food waste in the house. I know it sounds like I'm anal retentive about everything. Maybe I am, but I just hate to see food wasted. There, especially if we buy it or, of course we buy it, but like I'm trying to, and you grow it too. Wow, I'm really blanking today.
Blah, blah, blah. Trotting bus.
I make a lot of smoothies, and we get a lot of fruit in. We try to eat a lot of fruit. The trouble is there's not as many people living in my house as there used to be, so we have a tendency of buying too much or making too much food. So now what I do is, like if we get a pineapple. Well, somebody will slice a pineapple and eat 2 rings out of it, you know, and they'll leave the rest. What I've been doing is I've been going behind them, and if it's sit there longer than a day or two, you know, I'll start cutting it up and I'll bag it and freeze it, and I'll use those as my smoothies.
And how many bags of fruit have you ended up with?
A lot. I buy bananas in bulk and I freeze them because that's the base of most of my smoothies. So my freezer's full of frozen bananas, and now I got fruit. But sometimes you get some combinations that aren't really great. But me, I will throw them together anyway and see what happens, and I'll drink it anyway. Unless it's too disgusting, then I'll pour it out. And I don't feel so bad because I've saved a lot of that, you know, from being thrown away.
Right. It was going to be thrown away anyway. You just saved it to keep it from being thrown away so you can try again.
Right, and that's I started thinking about that, you know, because my life is pretty unconventional to most people. I don't make the type of money that most people do, but I save a lot of things and I reuse a lot of things, and that's one of the ways that I do that, and that's how I've achieved balance, is that I'm saving that from being wasted. And so now me or my wife doesn't have to work as hard to buy more food to end up turning around and throwing it away because it's going bad.
Makes sense.
All right, I'm going to give you another example of something that's out of balance. Have you ever heard of Butte, Montana?
Probably, but I don't know.
All right, Butte, Montana was at one point the largest, or maybe even the only place in America that mined and produced copper. Okay, they say that Butte is a mile wide and a mile deep because they stopped tunneling and they just started digging at the surface, and then there's this giant hole in Butte, Montana. Okay,
Wow.
and that was the industry there. Well, I don't remember the timeline or anything like that, but it's really interesting. If you go look up Butte, Montana, you'll find it. But they turned off the pumps that kept the water out of the reservoir or whatever, and it filled with water. Well, after centuries of mining, it's full of sulfuric acid and things like that, so it's just a big poisonous vat of water in the middle of the city. And
poison vat.
So that's not very balanced. So now there's a public hazard, you know, created by all this thing that did good for the country. And in the long run, all those companies eventually folded up and took their
mining operations elsewhere.
Yeah, like Taiwan or something like that, you know. And so that's all that's left in Butte, Montana, is the big giant toxic crater. And we need to prevent things like that from happening before they happen. And so even you know, that was a good thing for that city at one time, but eventually at the end it's a disaster.
Well, that's the same thing as fracking.
Oh, I agree with you there. A lot of people might not, but
they don't think about the long-term consequences of what they're doing. They think about, ooh, I can do this and I can do it faster this way, but they don't think about the long-term consequences of it.
Right, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I've seen so much of this wastefulness in industry and in my life in general. You know, it's too much emphasis put on profit, not on conservation and utilizing our resources to the best of their ability. It's easy to lose touch when you have, so much abundance of something. Like Butte had all the copper that it wanted, so it dug it out of the ground, but now it's a disaster.
Right. They could have dug it out of the ground and not made such a...
But it wouldn't have been profitable to them, and that's the thing that I'm getting at. The profitability is too much for what people are willing to put in to save the environment later on.
But profitability is what makes this world what it is today.
And that's why it's bad. Now, I know a lot of people don't see that, and a lot of people don't agree, but everything has to be paid at the end.
Yeah.
It's like not paying your rent ever and then throwing a fit when the landlord finally comes 6 months later to pay the rent. You always have to pay for what you're using now.
But that's the thing. A lot of industry has been put to the point where they don't have to pay for what they do. They destroy the environment and they destroy something. A lot of times they don't even have to take care of it on their way out the door anymore.
Right, I agree with you there. And you're not going to change anybody's minds either. You can only talk to certain people and start making incremental changes.
Right.
You know, I do that in my life. I don't agree with Walmart and the way that they run their business, so I don't shop at Walmart. And people think that that's crazy. How do you not shop at Walmart? Well, it's pretty easy. You know, don't go to Walmart and find what you need elsewhere. And that's another thing. Sometimes you have to learn how to do without to do the right thing. And nobody wants to do without.
My wife and I are the do that, and I've learned a lot of things. Like, I try to buy stuff that is built better. I don't necessarily have to be built in America or China or wherever, but I'll buy stuff that is built better. Normally it costs me a little bit more, but in the long run, it normally lasts me 10 times longer than something that I would buy that is cheaply made that I would buy at Walmart. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you have an example, though?
So my balance is, blue jeans. Most of the time, any time that I've ever bought blue jeans from Walmart, they last me approximately a year. And I'm talking blue jeans that I use for work. Okay? Now, I order Dickies blue jeans offline now. I will get 2 years out of a pair of jeans that cost me $10 more than to buy the ones at Walmart. So in the long run, I'm actually saving money because I can get 2 years of wear out of a pair of jeans instead of just 1 year of wear out of jeans. The material's thicker. You buy the ones at you buy the Dickie jeans at Walmart, and they're just not the same product.
Their jeans are different. The same brand is different.
Yes, Walmart will have places make things specifically for them so they can sell them at a certain price.
Right, I knew that. I didn't know they did like jeans and stuff. I thought the manufacturer just made them and then sent them.
They do everything that way. I'm with you. I'm not that big of a fan of Walmart, but that's our opinion.
Right, and I know some people have to shop at Walmart. They might not have the resources that I have. There's different microcosms everywhere you go. And talking about the jeans, you know, one of the ways that I don't go to Walmart is I go to thrift stores and buy my jeans. I don't buy new clothes anymore. I'm eliminating a whole lot of waste from my family financially and the waste that companies produce by buying a lot of products secondhand. I know somebody eventually, originally paid for those, but I don't, and I don't pay more than $4 for a pair of jeans. And I find them every time that I go to the thrift store. Sometimes I get them for $1. I just got a pair of Dickies for $1 because I caught like a sale, like a tag sale or something.
There's several guys at work. They do the same thing. They do all their work clothes from thrift stores. There was this man. He's retired now. His name was Wayne, and I come into work, and he always go to yard sales and stuff, and he'd buy T-shirts, 25 cents for a T-shirt, and those were the shirts that he wore.
Right.
And I don't know if you've seen it. It was a T-shirt, and it looked like a present, and it had a tag on it. It said, "To women from God." And he was in his 60s.
He what?
He was in his 60s.
Oh, well, he's old. He can get away with that.
I was like, Wayne, what are you doing? And he goes, I had 25 cents and I figured it was true, so I went on.
I envy those guys that are in that age. They can just get away with everything,
Yeah, you seen them wearing what was it? Oh my God, tanning bed shirts, like tanning bed company shirts, all the time. And he's like, you would be amazed at how many people just get rid of them. I was like, hey, as long as it works.
What's a tanning bed shirt? I mean, just advertising their company, or?
Yeah, like Joanne's tanning bed service or something like that.
They probably got a free T-shirt and
for so many times that you go and
right, and so nobody really wants the shirt, so they just send it to the thrift store. Yeah, I got you.
And we had a guy show up one time, and it was his first day on the job, and he was wearing a Morgan Foods T-shirt. The day he showed up for work,
he was prepared.
He found them in the thrift shop. He had a whole closet full of them.
Well, and that's cool. I think that people are a lot more conscious now than they used to be about where things go, and I mean it. Like I said before, my motto is live free and do no harm. It's hard to not do any harm. There's always going to be some broken eggs when you make an omelet.
Right.
But there can be other outcomes to a lot of the waste that we have. A lot of more useful outcome. It bugs me. It bugs me a lot.
When you had initially said to me about balance, I thought we were talking. I was thinking more along the lines of balancing time. That's my biggest thing.
Hey, it can be generalized, man.
My big thing is between work and sleep, and then trying to balance time with my wife and family, and then still have time to do the making and stuff, which I do save a lot of money by building my own stuff and repairing my own stuff compared to hiring someone to come in and do the work. And I know a lot of people can't do that because they don't understand how, but YouTube's a beautiful thing, and it will teach you a lot.
Oh, I agree, 100%. I think a lot of people are subject to information that they probably wouldn't have been able to before in the comfort of their own home because of YouTube.
That's true.
I'm not saying that all that information is true and correct, like my videos or something.
No. The videos of go back to last week's subject, shock versus artistically.
Yeah, you know what? I'm still struggling with that because it's hard to not grab somebody's attention. It's hard not to, as an artist, to not just draw what you think. And sometimes what you think isn't the best thing that you should be drawing. It's just like you shouldn't say everything you think. There's a balance in that too.
There's been a couple times lately that I've said things that I thought necessarily wasn't the best thing to do.
Dare I ask?
Yesterday I was yelling out the window at a guy walking down the road because I was watching traffic and he thought that I was watching him.
I don't. I can only imagine.
Well, I'm sitting at the light, and I'm getting ready to go down the on ramp to get on the interstate, and I'm watching traffic coming towards me, and I was trying to keep an eye on what was going on the interstate to see if it was too bad or anything. And he's walking along, and he's in my field of view. So I'm looking one way, and I'm looking the other. I'm looking one way, I'm looking the other. And he looks at me and goes, "What are you looking at? What are you staring at?" And I said, "Apparently, I'm not allowed to look at traffic."
My stock saying for when somebody says, "What are you looking at?" is, "I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet." Which isn't nice to say.
I said some other choice words, but I'll leave those out. Probably wasn't the best thing to say, but I was just trying to look out for everything, and he was walking right across where the on ramp was. I didn't want to hit the guy,
right,
but I was paying attention to everything that was going on around me.
I think that's a good example. Let's analyze this step by step. You're in traffic. You're trying to be cautious because you're going to be merging into traffic. And this guy is walking, and obviously he has some kind of hang-ups because you're looking his way. He feels defensive for some reason. So his defense is to verbalize it, to try to get you to not look at him.
Right.
And so immediately that puts you on defense, and you give him a what for, more or less. And then you both go on your way. But maybe if he wasn't so insecure, he wouldn't have he would have noticed that you're trying to just be cautious. And if we weren't so temperamental, we might not lash back.
I can't tell you exactly, but I can give you a rundown of the way I figure it. Because of where I live, and this guy being the way he presented himself, the way he acted, most likely the reason he was paranoid was because of drugs.
I wasn't going to say that. I don't know the guy.
I don't know, but with everything put together, most likely. And that paranoia is very predominant in people that have that problem.
True.
So,
Well, a lot of things are out of balance, and a lot of people are insecure. And
well, yeah, that's true.
We don't. The truth of the matter is, we don't know what's going on with the guy. He could be paranoid schizophrenic for all we know. It might not be about drugs. But how we restore balance in a situation like that is to not lash out the way that we often do.
Very true.
Because if you think about it, what are you gaining by putting somebody in their place like that? I know a whole slew of people. What?
I said me hung up and still talking about it 2 days later.
True.
I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's right. What you end up doing is that it stuck with you because of it.
Yeah, like how dare he get in my business? I gave him a what for. But if we learn how to let go of that insignificant stuff, it restores balance to us as individuals. That guy can choose to be a non-head if he wants. But, ultimately it ends up with us and how we deal with the situation. I'm going to give you another one. I think my wife Stacy showed me this video, or she was talking about it this morning. And I agree with both sides of this situation. You might have seen it on social media, but there was these people out in front of this Honda dealership that were begging for change. And they were out there every day begging for change, apparently it was like a father and son duo that were doing it.
Okay.
And apparently the Honda dealership offered them a job working at the dealership to help them out. And the response they got was, I make more money here in one day than you do a week. Okay? Which is wrong. And a lot of people do that. So the Honda dealership put out a sign beside them that said, don't give money to these people. You know, we offered them a job and everything, like the whole situation.
Yeah, I've seen that video now that you talked about it.
And when I encounter people like that, I'll usually give money because I don't know what their situation is. I don't know what anything is. But if I see them there like every day for 3 months, I'll stop giving them money because obviously they're not trying.
Right.
You know,
they're not moving forward in their life.
Right, and they're just living off other people's. What's the
Good
word?
nature.
What's that?
Good nature.
Yeah, other people's good nature. Thank you. Brotnism kicking in. So that's my take on it. I don't think that it's necessarily right to put up signs to try to classify people, because not because that was wrong on them, but because I think that somebody that might actually have a need that has to go out and do that once or twice might be discouraged from doing that because of that sign. You know what I mean?
But those people that would be out there doing that, you know, wouldn't necessarily turn down a job if somebody offered them a job.
Right. Right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's probably going to discourage people from doing something that helps them, because if they're upstanding, you know, they don't want people to think that way of them. And it is the people that are panhandling every day are making it bad for anybody that really does need help in a situation, I think.
I would agree.
I'm sure there's a whole slew of people that don't agree with me on that, but I'm not as confrontational as most people. I think that there's multiple facets of every story.
Well, there are some people that live. There's a guy that he had a motorcycle, or not a dirt bike wreck when he was a teenager. He lives in a wheelchair, okay, but he gives a speech that he has issues talking, and you know that his mom spent all the money from the settlement. The truth of the matter is that she did spend all the money from the settlement, and he makes over $100,000 a year by playing off of people's emotions.
Right.
Who was it? Lexington or Louisville? It was Lexington or Louisville that the news people actually did a thing on him, and he admitted to him. He's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a year. He has a degree in human behaviors and speech, something with speech. And he used his degrees to basically play off of people's emotions.
Right. And that doesn't just happen at the street level. That happens at higher up levels too. The taking advantage of people goes way up the ladder.
Isn't that what marketing is?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But there's a way to market with a good conscience too. And that's what I talk about a lot of time. I don't believe anything that I see or hear in media. I take everything that I see or hear with a grain of salt. Everything, not just one side, everything. Because most of it is marketing. We're trapped in this marketing. I'm losing my words again. Capitalist cycle that is creating waste, and you have to look outside of that. That's why I'm talking about balance. How do we get to a place where we don't have garbage trucks running every week to collect the waste from all of this capitalism? How can we convert all these precious materials, and they are precious, it's not garbage. I I am making my living off of taking stuff out of the garbage right now. It's not a good living, but that's what I do.
Right.
So this all goes hand in hand. Well, I'm really serious today, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
I'm passionate about this. I try to liven it up with that monkey joke.
I was trying to go with the joking side and balancing my time and.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It all works together. There's not one thing in this world that isn't connected. You want to spend time with your wife and you want to do the things that you want to do, but your job demands that you give more of yourself than probably what it deserves most of the time. And that is the effects of this overindulged capitalism. I'm not saying that capitalism itself is completely bad, but if it's only serving a very few people, then it's not a good thing.
I don't mind the 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I don't mind that because I still get a lot of time at home to do what I want and time to spend with my wife. And I do. It's when I get to the point where I feel the company is pulling too much is when I'm having to work 7 days a week for months.
Right.
2 or 3 months straight of 7 days a week, that kills any person. Now, I know factories where people work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, only get off holidays and been doing that for years.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's abusing people.
And I would agree with that.
But most people wouldn't say that the person that makes $100,000 a year selling that product by saying it's the most amazing product is a bad person, right?
Not necessarily.
Right. You would say, good for them. They figured out a way to make it a good living doing what they're good at. But they wouldn't say the same thing about that guy who has the degree, who is making $100,000 a year sitting on the road taking money from people. But actually, it's the same thing.
Because he's using his product to get his money. It might not be a feasible product, but he used his degree to create a product to make him his money.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Most of the products that we buy that are 50% better or 200% better or whatever isn't really the truth. It's just human nature to try to get the best thing that's out there, or the best thing that's out there, when it probably isn't. It's probably not healthy for you.
Very true.
I watched a show about what was it called? It's about the street artist Banksy and about people selling street art. Like in that movie they went to Haight-Ashbury where he did that giant rat in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And this guy wanted to preserve it because he views it as a viable piece of artwork. And he spent like altogether $40,000 to get this, remove it from the building, preserve it, and promote it, okay?
Right.
And he wanted to do that because he thinks it's a wonderful piece of artwork, and he wanted to give it to a museum, okay? And by the end of the movie, I don't know if I should, well, spoilers. If you don't want to know the end of the movie, don't listen to this. By the end of the movie, none of the museums that he approached wanted to take it. And a guy who was selling Banksy artwork offered him $700,000 for it. And
oh, wow.
The guy's holding his guns. He said, no, I want it to go into a museum. I want people to see this. This is public artwork. And that's what I want it to do. I want the public to be able to enjoy it. That is graffiti artwork. I love graffiti artwork. I know people's opinions vary. It is vandalism, okay? It's wrong to do that, but I still love the artwork. I love the medium and everything that goes into it. But because that's Banksy, it's worth more than $500,000. That's the perceived value of somebody who wants to own it. But
that's perceived value of someone's vandalism.
Right. Well, whether you view it as vandalism or not doesn't really illustrate my point.
I'm saying it is artwork, but at the same time, it is someone else willing to pay $500,000 for someone else to vandalize something.
And why is that? Because it's Banksy.
Mm-hmm.
If it was me or you that stenciled something on the side of the building, nobody would care. And a lot of that stuff gets painted over. A lot of Banksy's stuff has been painted over because it is graffiti. But that's what I'm getting at. There's a perceived value about things that aren't really worth that much. I mean, I would like to make a living selling artwork, but I don't want to vandalize or do ill will to someone's property for it. And there has to be a balance to that as well. It has to have a value other than just people's perception of the value.
Very true.
Such a serious topic today.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for all that seriousness.
This is what I'm passionate about, man. I get sick of seeing things that it doesn't make sense. I mean, I can see the thought process behind it. It's easier to not, find a place for books that are being thrown out than it is to just recycle them. It's easier to just go along with things instead of fight people on what's right.
But with the recycling, they are at least going to the point of recycling instead of putting them in a landfill.
Yeah, I'll give them that, but there's a whole wastefulness process behind that too. It isn't. You have to ask questions. And I think that's what I want to emphasize the most in this podcast. If you want balance, you have to understand and you have to ask, you have to question what's going on. When you see an ad on TV, you have to question, is that the truth? Or what is the reason these books are getting thrown away? Because they're not damaged.
Because 9 out of 10 dentists agree that Orbit is the best go.
That one dentist is the guy like me.
Well, that reminds me of it was a gum commercial, but there was like 4 out of 5 dentists say something about it, and they look at them, and the first 4 of them have a little card or say yes, and the 5th one is getting bit by a squirrel.
What is that's a gum commercial?
You were talking about advertisement and it being askew, and that was the first thing that come to, because that was them completely being askew, because they're saying by doing that they're saying that the 5th dentist really didn't mean to say that he knew it was because of the squirrel. True?
Yeah. That's clever. I love advertising, but you have to look through it. Just like I love art, but sometimes you have to look through that too. Am I buying this just because Jackson Pollock is Jackson Pollock, or do I really like paint splatters?
That's true.
You have to think about those things. And everything, and a lot of those things mean different things to different people, and that's okay. I'm just trying to look for ways to eliminate the waste that we have.
Well, I do have something for what's it good for.
All right.
I don't know, I might have talked about it before, but my entire walkway with the stepping stones in my backyard I made out of stepping stones that I dug out of my yard.
I like that.
I found them like mowing. I didn't even know they were in the yard. Mowing and cleaning up the yard where it was taller from the last person that done it, or that had the place, and I cut down the yard and scalped it, and I found, a bunch of stepping stones, and I reused those stepping stones. Instead of going and buying more, I just reused what I had.
Right.
I don't care what shape they are. They serve one purpose.
And a lot of that in our society gets pushed on us, that we have to have the newest and the best. When old stepping stones work, even creek rock works. Sometimes you need to do without to appreciate what's going on.
I like creek rock as walkways. I think it turns out beautiful.
Yeah, that's my favorite, actually.
You mentioned it. I had to make a comment. That creek rock walkways and stuff are absolutely beautiful. It's like I got a giant concrete pad. Instead of putting my building on it, I use it as a patio.
Right.
My building, the supports underneath of it are cement blocks that I used that were underneath of the house when someone tried to jack up the floor and didn't do it the right way. I reuse a lot of the stuff that I've found over the years, repurpose it for something else that it still works.
I know I sound like a hypocrite about a lot of things sometimes.
Are you a hypocrite?
or maybe too anal retentive or whatever. But if you look at like some other countries where they don't have this capitalism ingrained into their life, they're happy people too.
Yeah.
They're happy with what they have, and I think it's easy to do that if you set your mind to it. If you can be happy with what you have, and you'll probably be happier if you're not chasing all these material things. And it only takes a little bit of effort to think about what's going on and whether it's better. You don't have to be ultra conservative. You don't have to live in a teepee. You don't have to drive an electric car. You can just do little things every day, and it helps balance your life.
Balance.
Well, we probably should wrap it up. You got any more good jokes?
No, I only came up with the one that I can think of.
I'll give you one that my son has been telling lately. So autocorrect walks into a bra. Pretty good, right?
What did the hammer say to the nail?
But you already told that one. Oh, what did the hammer say to the what?
I'm bored.
I'm bored? That one don't make sense to me.
What did the nail say to the hammer, or what did the nail say to the board? I'm hammered. What did the hammer say to the nail? I'm bored.
So we got the nail hammered? All right. We ought to wrap this up. Take us home, Drew.
That's episode 6 of Making Fun. The podcast for good enough for who it's for.
Indeed. We'll see you next time. Live free and do no harm.